Hello and welcome to my tutorial on how to find new music online. Terrestrial radio is pretty sorely lacking in terms of anything new and original for music, so I'm going to show you tips on how I find new, great, independent, and mostly free music online. The first is using an RSS feed reader like Google Reader. The second is using podcasts and subscribing to podcasts and listening to shows in iTunes, which I will get to a little later. But first we're going to start with the RSS reader. Basically what an RSS reader does is it takes data from a number of websites and basically keeps it all in one place, so it's very easy for you to refer to, search, and view, rather than keeping a bunch of tabs open or doing a bunch of Google searches or surfing for hours and hours and hours to find what you need. This pertains to any kind of music or subject that you're looking for. I'm going to focus on soul music as an example, simply because that's what I gravitate to, but you could search for rock and roll, you could search for country, bluegrass, African music, whatever it is that you're looking for, or any subject that you're looking for. I'll show you in my existing Google Reader later what various subjects I keep, but I'm going to start with a blank slate here, and I'm going to start in Safari even though Chrome is my browser of choice. Safari is a very basic browser. I think a lot of people are using it, and this will give you just a general overview on how to use an RSS reader. So we're going to go and we're going to do a Google blog search, because music blogs are probably the best way to find new music these days. So I'm going to go to google.com and we're going to go to the blogs section of it. I want to put in a few just very basic terms of the type of music that I'm looking for. Soul music, R&B, here's an oldie, acid jazz. And we have a number of links that have come up in our search from various blog sources. I'm going to go to Soul Bounce because I trust it as a news source. I've used it before. And I'm just going to go to the main page rather than wait for the link to load up, because I think this one actually takes a while to load up. Yeah, that's taken a while, so I'm going to go ahead and go over to my existing tab that's already open for Soul Bounce. Now if you notice over here there's an RSS button, and in Chrome it looks a little different. When you go to a website it looks more like this. That little icon is your RSS subscription. You'll see it says click to subscribe in Chrome. But back to Safari, we're going to go here. And there are also, usually on the website, there's that feed subscriber as well. This is generally a good way to subscribe, or you could actually go to the RSS feed itself. You click on it. There's two different types of RSS. There's Atom and there's RSS. And this is what the actual feed looks like. Sometimes it's followed with an extension like XML. Basically, we want to copy that. We want to go over to Google Reader, and we want to hit the subscribe and paste that address in the subscription and add it. That's one way of doing it. You'll see that our Soul Bounce feed has come up, and here are the terms. If we scroll down, we see basically all the news postings that this blog is posted on for different releases for Soul Bounce. If I go back over to the site, the main site, we'll go back and we saw the trusty little icon that came up here on the website itself. You could hit this as well, and this will act a little differently. This will give you a page. Sorry, let this load up real quick. This will give you a choice. using FeedBurner on how you want to handle your subscription. So it's given us a number of resources that we could use to subscribe. I'm going to use Google Plus. I'm going to use Google. And here it gives you an option. Do you want to feature it in your Google homepage, or do you want to add it to your Google Reader? Now, I'll remind you, you obviously need to be logged on to your Google account when you do this, or it won't work. So I'm going to hit Add to Google Reader. It's going to go back to Google Reader. Now I have 2 subscriptions to Soulbounce here. Obviously the same subscription. So I could actually choose to unsubscribe to this one feed, leaving just the first feed. I'll go to another site here. Let's close that Google Reader page. Go back to our original Google Reader page. I'm going to go to a number of other sites that I trust. These are sort of my top 4 sites for finding soul music. So if you do like soul music, I recommend you add these to your Google Reader. Bama Love Soul is a great resource. We'll copy that. Subscribe. Strictly Beats is a fantastic website for finding beat tapes. So if you like instrumental hip hop with no words, sometimes words, but this is generally if you just like instrumental funky music, Strictly Beats is fantastic. We're going to go to the RSS side of that. We'll copy the feed. We'll subscribe in Google Reader. So you see we're basically coming up with a number of sources here. Rather than having to go to one website, I'm going to also add one more here. This is Flowworthy. This is also a great site for finding instrumental hip hop. Excuse me. We'll copy this one. And we will add it to our subscription. So you see, we're basically adding a number of sources to our Google Reader. And I'm gonna manage my subscriptions here just to basically generate a folder, and based on subject, because like I said, in Google Reader you can subscribe to any site, various subjects, and this is one way of keeping your feeds organized. I'm going to folder in tags, and I'm going to actually, we're going to go to subscriptions. We're going to click these guys. Delay that. We're just going to go to this tab over here. Sorry, I'm doing this on the fly. And we're going to call this Soul and Jazz. I'll show you why here once I show you my existing Google Reader feed. And then we're going to go back to Google Reader. I'm going to refresh. And you see our folder has come up here, and Bama Love Soul has been added to the folder from what I did in the managed subscriptions. Now you can very easily just click and drag the rest of the feeds into that folder. And I'll show you the benefit of one feed. Will show you what's in that particular feed. If you click on the folder, it will show you all your news sources. And I'm going to condense this. This is so far, it's expanding every single entry. I'm going to go to the list view. And now you see where each website is showing its own feed, and it's just basically organized but chronologically. So Strictly Beats has a post here. So, you know, you could basically go, and here's another way of doing this too. Like, remember this little guy here that I did of the Google search for soul, R&B, and acid jazz? Let's just do a regular search of everything for that. And see what happens when I go to the end of that. This is a bunch of code. Let's go back to Google and just retype that search. Might make it easier. R&B, acid jazz. Let's see if this works. It's still giving me that code. My point I was going to make here is that you can actually set up a search agent, and search agents also generate their own RSS feed. Let me just look and see if that's possible to do here very quickly. Go back to blogs. This might not work in Safari. This might be a Chrome thing. All right, rather than dwell on this, we're going to go back to Google Reader. And here's the great thing about Google Reader. Once you do have a number of sources chosen and categories, you know, of different subjects, you can search those as well. So let's say I just wanted to download free. Now look at this. Basically, all of our blogs are coming up with entries where there are free downloads. So if I click on that, basically if you read the article, you can either read it in the reader, or if you command click on this icon, it'll blow it up in a tab and you can read it on the site. But lo and behold, completely free and available here, which will basically either take you to a download site. Again, I'll command click on that link to open a new tab. Okay, well, here's a Bandcamp link with a free download. So there you go. And there are basically, for this artist, like if you were interested in Lexa's music and you wanted to keep an eye on her Bandcamp page, that's her Facebook page. We'll go over here to more releases. Well, the main point is that there's an RSS feed for that as well. So let me just quickly take you over to my Chrome page where I've got my existing Google Reader on my main Google account. So again, here's Soul and Jazz. This has been set up extensively with different sources. There's Bama Loves Soul. There's Flowworthy. There's Soul Bounce. There's Strictly Beats. But you'll see I have a number of other blogs, because when you go to one blog, it may refer you to another blog, and if you read that blog, that may also be a great source for your for your reader. Now you'll notice I have other different subject matters here. I have technology as a subject. I have writers and writing. I have several different types of music subjects that I look at: production, marketing, the industry itself. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, so I find Doctor Who blogs, and I subscribe to all my Doctor Who news in Google Reader, and this gives you a number of different sources. So basically an RSS reader is a fantastic way to find, new things for any subject that you're looking for. And coupling Google Reader with another reader like Feedly, here's Feedly. Now the thing about Feedly is it's a little bit more visual of an interface than Google Reader. Google Reader, if you're in the list view, you're pretty much, it's all very list-wise with pull-down menus. Everything is in chronological order. Very, very simple, straightforward way of viewing your data. But the great thing about it is that you can search. I can search in soul and jazz. I can search my entire reader feed, which I do on a daily basis for things like download, free. And you see basically a number of free downloads that are coming up through my RSS feeder. But Feedly is also another nice news reader because it's a little more visual. As you scroll down, there are pictures. This highlights basically the most recent things in my various feeds. I keep tabs on the comic book industry, the music industry. I have friends and colleagues that post blogs. And I basically keep track of my friends and colleagues through Google Reader, various musicians that I like to follow, and DJs and people like that. So those are all in Feedly. And then also as you go to your sub navigation in your folders, again, everything in those folders break down to be a lot more visual. And then of course you can do searches like download soul music, and up comes a number of news sources highlighting where you can find free soul music to download. So that's a quick nutshell of how I find music in our RSS feeds and subjects in RSS feeds. Now I'm going to very quickly go through also how to find music in podcasts like iTunes. We're going to very quickly just say soul music in iTunes. This is a clean account that I've basically started. Like I don't have anything in my library except for my iCloud stuff. But as you scroll down through the search finds here, and you just scroll down to podcasts and you do a see all. Basically, here are a number of resources for podcasts that feature soul music. And I'm just going to quickly go to a couple here that I trust. Soul Music of the World. This is generally a good podcast site. This guy, DJ Come of Age, he finds mixes about every few days, every week that he highlights on his podcast. And all you have to do is basically subscribe. It asks you if you want to do this. I will elect not to have that prompt come up when I subscribe from now on. And you see the podcasts have come up now in as an option in your library. And I'm also going to go to a list reader on this just because it's easier for me to do so. And I'll click that tab, and you see basically these are all the podcasts that DJ Come of Age has done. iTunes will subscribe to the newest one and give you the choice of what you want to hang on to in your settings. Right now it's set to check for new episodes every hour. It's going to download the most recent one, and it's going to hang on to the last 3 episodes, and then it's going to delete any older episodes. This is basically just so it doesn't bog down your hard drive and you don't have podcast after podcast after podcast. But I'm going to go back to the store. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to subscribe to one more podcast on iTunes, and then I'm going to show you how you can subscribe to podcasts that are not necessarily searchable on iTunes. Keith Mack also does a fantastic podcast. I'm just going to subscribe this way, just hitting the button rather than going to his page. So now I've added his as well, and that's downloading. So now, excuse me. So you could fortify, or if you also choose to, you can go to other sites. Let's go back to let's go back to Bama Loves Soul, because Bama Loves Soul does podcasts as well. I'm going to see if this works. I might have to go to a different site for something like this, but if you look through the site, you can generally find, maybe Soul Bounce has it. Searching, trying to find this. Yeah, that's not working. Let's go back to Bama Loves Soul. Generally, on a website that does podcasts, there will be a feed. I'll show you here in a second what I'm talking about. But sometimes you can take the website itself, go back to iTunes, and if you go to Advanced, Subscribe to Podcast, and you enter that URL, every once in a while, okay, this is a bad example because Bama Loves Soul doesn't work, but if I go to a site like Podomatic, which I know does specialize in podcasts, and I were looking for a particular type of podcast, let's go by genre: music, R&B, urban. Let's see what we've got here. Select Soul. This is a generally good podcast. Soul Sorts is also good, but let's say Select Soul for now. We click on that show. If you're on a site like this, you can scroll down and either this will come up, subscribed with iTunes, which you could basically just hit that. It will open up iTunes, and there you go. Whammo. There's the Select Soul podcast downloading its most recent episodes. And you see basically we're just adding hours and hours of music that you've probably never heard into your iTunes library. You can also do that with an RSS feed. So I'm going to command click on this, or if you're on Windows, you'd right click it to get this menu. And I'm going to copy the link for the RSS feed. And I'm going to go back. Actually, I'm going to try it with a different podcast. Let's try, quick plug, the Funky White Boy podcast at funkywhiteboy.podomatic.com. Then there's yours truly. But we're going to go down and I'm going to just copy the link for that, the RSS link, even though I could hit the subscribe with iTunes button as well. And then we're going to go to iTunes, Advanced, Subscribe to Podcast. We're going to paste that in. And lo and behold, the newest Funky White Boy podcast is downloading. So basically what you have here is a way to find podcasts online and subscribe to them with iTunes. A lot of websites have podcasts. Sometimes websites will have singles that they feature. For example, a good example is KCRW Radio here in Los Angeles. They do a service called, let's see if I have it here. Today's Top Tune. And every day, KCRW posts through their podcast feed a song of the day that they've featured. Here's Ani DeFranco, Van Hunt. This is a good source for especially eclectic, different types of music. and then you can hit the iTunes link. This will basically take you to an iTunes prompt where you can view it in iTunes and subscribe. So I hope I've given you a general quick overview of how to find new music online with both an RSS reader like Google Reader and through iTunes. So happy hunting. Go out and find some fantastic new music. Enjoy.